In question 17, we're going to be asked 4 statements about natural selection, and we need to answer the question of which of the following are correct. So we have our 4 statements here. Let's have a look at them and work through them. We'll start with the first one, which says that competition occurs between individuals of the same species. Now, is this a part of natural selection? Well, natural selection means that within nature there are a number of selection pressures which lead to organisms that are better adapted surviving to a reproductive age, having more of the genetic material transferred to the next generation, and therefore eventually sculpting the gene pool of the species and perhaps even leading to speciation. So, when we're asked about competition occurring between individuals of the same species, well, that's termed intraspecific competition, and that's a key part of natural selection. This competition will allow those which are best adapted in the face of these natural selection pressures to have a greater likelihood of reproducing and producing offspring which bear their genes. Moving on to 2, competition occurs between individuals of different species. Now again, this is another part of evolution by natural selection, in the sense that these selection pressures can variably affect different species, and species groups as a whole, which are better adapted to face these natural selection pressures, are more likely to thrive, and therefore it may lead to the extinction of the other species we're talking about. Moving on to 3, selection can lead to evolution. Well, we should know this to be true, but what's the mechanism for this? Well, let's take the case of a number of big cats in the savannah, which all have different ear shapes, and this is because of the variation that exists within a species as a result of sexual reproduction and mutation, which generates variation in the population. So within this variation, selection pressures, such as the ability to hunt in the tall grass, may lead, for instance, for the individuals who have taller ears with fur on the ends of them to be more likely to have success when hunting, and therefore that may lead to a increased likelihood of surviving to a reproductive age, and therefore in the next generation their genes are more likely to be passed on. So between generations there may be a massive change in the proportion and distribution of a particular allele within the population. So through successive generations the gene pool may be entirely shaped differently. So this is what we term evolution, and there also may be the case that extinction may happen. For instance, let's say the smallest eared big cats are the least likely to survive to a reproductive age. Through successive generations, their alleles won't be passing on to the next generation, and therefore over time they will be eliminated from the gene pool. So that's the case within a species. Let's hypothesize that these are instead different species altogether. The same process could occur such that this is the next generation across the ecosystem, and it may be the case that over time a particular species cannot pass on its genes with enough reproductive success and therefore gets eliminated from the population. So we can say selection can lead to extinction, and therefore our answer must be option F.